Usually there's a time period where Michael takes some time off. The night they lost to Orlando, I said, Michael, I'm about to get out of here. Let me know when you want me to see you, because I'll see you tomorrow. Michael had an obligation to himself, the fans, his teammates, the organization, his family, everybody. He said, if you're gonna sit down and take 3 hours out of your day to watch me on TV, I have an obligation to give you my best. To give you my best all the time.
Some would say the greatest trainer in NBA history was Tim Grover. As Grover back in the day, he was kind of the OG player trainer, the top tier, and the go-to guy for the best players in the world. And it is pretty well documented Tim Grover is a big Michael Jordan fan and a big supporter of his. Now, even with that being the case, Tim Grover having his own biases, what he said about LeBron James versus Jordan still caught me off guard. And I'm not going to say Grover directly speaks for Jordan, but I think if Jordan ever debated him versus LeBron James, what Tim Grover says in this clip will be very, very similar to what Jordan thinks.
He's asking between MJ and LeBron. All right?
MJ!
All right? So, here we go. Three parts. All right? This thing has only happened 4 times in the history of the NBA. In the history of the NBA. 4 times. Where one player has won the scoring title, won the regular season MVP, was first team defensive, led the playoffs in scoring, and won the MVP in the finals. All 5 things. It's only happened 4 times in the NBA. You know who the 4 players who do it were? Jordan.
Now, of course, Michael Jordan, unlike LeBron James, would never claim he's the greatest or better than a superstar player. But like I said earlier, if he ever did in private, I think Tim Grover's argument will be Jordan's go-to. And for me and many NBA fans, when you rank the best players of all time, the greatest players of all time, a player's peak and prime is much more valuable and indicative of how good they were than longevity. And like Grover said, Michael Jordan 4 times in his career did the following: won the scoring title, MVP, first team all defense, led the playoffs in scoring, and won finals MVP. Those seasons being 91, 92, 96, and 98. Of course, Jordan's career, it was longer than 4 seasons, but I think those 4 distinct years kind of encapsulate Michael Jordan and how great he was. As looking at 91 in the playoffs, he averaged 31 points, 8 assists, showing he could pass the rock, be a playmaker, as well as a great scorer. 92 averaged 35 points per game, shot 38% from deep, and the finals went off versus Drexler. That year, of course, showing he could shoot the 3 if he chose to. 96, that was Jordan's revenge season, going 72-10, winning the championship in dominant fashion, and getting ring number 4. And last but not least, you have 98, debatably Jordan's best and most impressive championship, as that Bulls team was heavily depleted, running on fumes, and the oldest champion in NBA history. From a legacy perspective, those 4 championships are the closest thing you'll find to perfection. And the icing on the cake for Jordan is that in addition to those 4 championships, he has 2 more rings, 2 more finals MVPs, 1 more MVP, and a host of defensive awards. Of course, LeBron, James, Kobe, Kareem, even Magic, they were great players with very impressive resumes. But compared to Michael Jordan, the resume standard, I'm not going to say it's not close, but there's a definitive gap between him and all those other players. And one of my favorite Jordan stats, it really shows how dominant he was, how dominant his Bulls teams were, is that from 1990-98, an 8-year period Michael Jordan, when he played with the Bulls, they not once lost 3 games in a row. That is the regular season plus the playoffs for a whopping 626 games without dropping 3 straight. For some perspective, this year in the NBA alone, every superstar lost 3 straight games. LeBron's Lakers started the season 0-5, of course losing 3 straight. Steph Curry, in under 10 games, his Warriors lost 4 straight. For Giannis, someone said the best in the world, his Bucks team lost 3 straight games in the playoffs and the regular season. And last but not least, Jokic, his Denver team lost 4 straight down the home stretch of the season. Not losing 3 straight games for close to a decade. Can anyone touch that record? Because even the best superstars today can't go 82 games without dropping 3 straight. Now, looking back at Tim Grover, here's his second point about Jordan versus LeBron James. Kind of half kidding, but not really.
If you own a pair of Jordans or have a pair of Jordans on, stand up.
Wow. Hey, just turn around.
If you're wearing a pair of LeBron, people sit down. If you have a pair of LeBrons on, stand up. Number three, here comes a mic drop right here. Here comes a mic drop right here. All right? We've all heard the stories about individuals getting robbed for their Jordans. We've all heard the story, right? Have you heard a story? Anybody getting stuck up for a pair of LeBrons?
So, of course, off-the-court impact, that's talked about a lot in these debates. And for me personally, I value it a little bit, but I think on-the-court play, on-the-court hardware matters infinitely more. But if you want to talk off-the-court impact, I don't think anyone in NBA history had more of an impact than Michael Jordan. As over 20 years after he retired, he is still the most popular basketball player in America as well as the world. And one of the reasons I think even younger fans gravitate to Jordan and Kobe, it was their mindset and the way they played and conducted themselves on the court. As both those guys primarily played their entire prime with one franchise. Compared to superstars today who change teams like they're getting dressed. And I wasn't going to include this topic for the video, but since it's kind of relevant, LeBron at this year's ESPYs, he had a decent speech, but near the end of it, he said, quote, "I not once cheated the game." That can be taken in a variety of ways, what cheated the game actually means. For 2023 standards, this era standards LeBron James didn't really cheat the game. But for all of NBA history standards, GOAT standards, Michael Jordan standards, it's definitely debatable. As leaving Cleveland, forming a super team Miami with Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, that whole cast, some would say that move was cheating the game. And for fans alive at that time, that was the OG Kevin Durant to Golden State move. Of course, they're different in some respects, but the end result was a dominant super team who was overwhelming to the NBA. And looking past that move, he left Miami, left Cleveland, and now Los Angeles might leave again. When a player keeps leaving teams, jumping from conference to conference, getting all these superstar players, all-star players, making tons of trades, some would argue that's ring chasing and cheating the game. And there is a ridiculous stat out there that LeBron teams since 2010, there's like over 100 trades they've made, which is simply unthinkable. And one last thing I do want to touch on, it's a little bit cliche, but it's the old school mindset versus the new school mindset. And I would say the old school mindset, the kind of Jordan Kobe mentality, that died in the early 2010s. And what that mindset was, it was win at all costs, play as many games as possible, and just go balls to the wall every single game. And for Jordan, even in Washington, that mentality was still there. As an 03, nearing 40, having broken knees, cracked fingers, being a shell of himself, that Michael Jordan still played all 82 games, averaging ridiculous 37.0 minutes per game. A 40-year-old Jordan that year played a total of 3,031 total minutes. In the year 2023, that minutes total would rank first. And you have to go back all the way to 2017 for a single player who played more minutes than Jordan in a season. If you want to know why Michael Jordan, still to this day, is the most popular basketball player in the world, it's because he would have played despite anything. Sickness, injury, fatigue, it didn't matter. He was playing 82 games, giving it his best, and most likely win the championship in the process. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.